with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: ويسألونك عن الروح قل الروح من أمر ربي وما أوتيتم من العلم إلا قليلا. They ask you concerning the soul. Say, the soul is an entity by the command of my Lord, and you have been given only a little amount of knowledge. We mentioned a couple of nights ago that the mushrikeen of Mecca, Quraysh, they went to a nearby city by the name of Najran. Najran was home to a community of Jews, and there were Jewish scholars and Christian scholars. They went to them and they told them, give us questions, difficult questions, for us to test Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa and to put him on the spot, to embarrass him, to question him. So Jewish scholars of the time in the city of Najran, they gave Quraysh several difficult questions to ask. Those questions included asking about the Day of Judgment, asking about the hour, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ, and they asked about Ahl al-Kahf, the famous story of the people of the cave that is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. And they asked about the soul, Ar-Ruh. They said, go and ask Muhammad about Ar-Ruh, the soul. If he gives you a lot of details, then he's lying. If he tells you a lot about the soul, then that's a sign that he's not telling the truth. But if he doesn't tell you a lot, then this could be a sign that he's speaking the truth. So they came and they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul. Rasulullah answers with two words. قُلْ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Say that the soul is an entity by the command of my Lord. That's it. قُلْ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And you have only been given some knowledge, not a lot of knowledge. You see, my dear friends, scholars throughout history, philosophers, deists, those who believe in God, those who don't believe in God, throughout history, scholars, philosophers have been intrigued by the human soul. Where did it come from? Did it exist before our birth, before our time on earth, or not? Once we depart this life, once our physical bodies are withered away, what happens to our soul? Does it wither away the same way that our bodies wither away, or does it continue to exist after our humanly bodies cease to exist? Is the soul something physical? Can it be seen? Can it be felt? Or is it metaphysical? And so on and so forth. These questions have been asked for thousands of years, and they're still being asked. And till today, people are intrigued by the human soul. What is it? What does it mean? What is it made of? How long will it last? How old is our human soul? And so on and so forth. You know, there's some people today, they're intrigued by technology. Smartphones, wow. This creation, that collects. Your smartphone is it's your TV, it's your calculator, it's your laptop, it's your radio, it's your camera. It's everything to you, right? It's an enormous creation. It's something valuable. Okay. There's a reason to be awed. There's some people that are astonished by smart cars or electric cars, by Teslas, smartphones, smart cars, planes. There are some people that are intrigued by planes. For a plane that carries, as I mentioned yesterday, there are some planes that carry 800 passengers from one continent to another, 16 hours, 17 hours. I remember I had a flight that was 19 hours from Doha, Qatar to New Zealand. 19 hours in the air. That's something intriguing. That's something unbelievable. Skyscrapers, huge buildings, 100 floors, something unbelievable. But there's something more intriguing than all of this. Something more intriguing than all of the technology that we have today, and that is the human soul. The human soul is more intriguing. It is more ambiguous. It is more interesting. Thus, philosophers and scholars for centuries have attempted to understand the human soul. How does it work? How does it exist? How long will it exist? And so on and so forth. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. This soul that is the base for our emotions. When we hate, we love, it stems from the soul. If you're brave, it's because you have a brave soul. If you're a coward, it's because you have a cowardly soul. Your emotions, everything that you feel, even being ambitious, being lazy, it all goes back to the soul. So what sort of creation is this? What sort of creation is the human soul? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now we see in the Holy Quran that Allah Azza wa Jal uses the word ruh, ar-ruh, because that's the topic of tonight's lecture. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul. We see that this word has come up in the Quran in numerous occasions. But what is interesting is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in every usage of the word ruh, it differs from the other usages. So we see the word ruh mentioned in the Quran in different meanings and used in different contexts. For example, sometimes the word ruh in the Quran means a supernatural power that helps prophets, helps divinely people, prophets and imams perform their jobs and perform their tasks. This ruh is what supported prophets and our prophet and other prophets and helped them. It was their companion in doing their tasks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآتَيْنَا عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَيَّدْنَاهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ. We gave Isa ibn Maryam the bayinat, the clear signs, and we helped him, we supported him بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ, with that supernatural power that helped him in his endeavor and his strife. This is one. Another meaning of ruh that has been used in the Holy Quran, it has been used to mean the divine power that helps believers, it inspires believers, it motivates believers. See, for example, أولئك كتب في قلوبهم الإيمان وأيدهم بروح من. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about mu'mineen, believers. He كتب في قلوبهم الإيمان. He has established faith in their hearts. وأيدهم بروح من. And He has supported them, helped them by الروح. A ruh from Him. It's a supernatural power that helps believers and mu'mineen. In a third case, the word ruh can allude to Jibreel alayhi salam, one of the greatest angels, the archangel, the greatest angel, Jibreel. He's been mentioned in the Quran. He's been called a ruh. نزل به الروح الأمين على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين. نزل به الروح الأمين. The one who revealed the Quran, who brought down the revelation, is الروح الأمين, and here it means Jibreel. The ruh that is trustworthy, الروح الأمين. In a fourth instance, we see that the word ruh applies to a creation that is either the largest of all angels or is a creation that is apart from all angels, called ar-ruh. And there's a debate among scholars in that ar-ruh, is he one of the angels but he's the largest of all angels, or is he something else? For example, we see تنزل الملائكة on ليلة القدر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم. In another verse, يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا. So ar-ruh could either be one of the greatest of all angels or it's something else. He's not even part of the angelic family. The word ruh has been used in the Quran to mean the Quran itself. The Quran itself, the Quran calls it ar-ruh. Or divine revelation. Generally, divine revelation has been called ar-ruh in the Quran. For example, وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. And hence we have revealed to you ruhan. We have revealed to you the Quran. We see that the Quran calls itself ar-ruh in this verse. And finally, ar-ruh can mean the human soul. This is one of its meanings. And it's been used in the Quran as such, to mean the human soul. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Allah tells the angels when He created Adam, He says, when I fix him and I blow in him from my soul, meaning giving him what? A human soul, then fall and prostrate to him. فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. These are the different usages of the word ruh in the Holy Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So let's go back to our verse. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. Having this in mind, that the word ruh in the Quran has been used in various meanings. So when they came and they told Rasulullah, tell us about the ruh, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, which meaning did they mean? What did they mean when they asked about the soul? Which soul is it that they meant? Here scholars have various opinions. And let me try to summarize these opinions quickly. One opinion says that they're asking about that huge angel that descends on Laylatul Qadr. That's the ruh that they're asking about. Why? Where's the proof? The proof is the Quran says, تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا. The angels and the ruh, they descend on Laylatul Qadr. And this verse says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. So most definitely they're asking about that angelic creature or a creature that is greater than all other angels. But this isn't sufficient proof, because as we saw, the word ruh being used to allude to that angelic creature was used in other meanings as well, in other contexts as well. So this theory requires more proof. Another theory says that يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, they're asking about Jibreel, because the Quran says نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ. The Quran was brought down by the trustworthy soul, Jibreel. We know that it was Jibreel that would always bring down the revelation to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of angels, but it was only one that always brought down the revelation. It was always Jibreel. Whether it was to Rasulullah or to Isa or Musa or Ibrahim or all other prophets, the angel of revelation who was designated to reveal the scriptures to the prophets was always Jibreel. So hence, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, they're asking about Jibreel. But again, this theory also lacks proof and evidence. Why? Because as we saw, the same way Jibreel is called ar-ruh, there are others that are called ar-ruh. And the word ruh has been used in other contexts. So this is not sufficient. A third theory says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They were asking about the Quran, because as we saw, Quran calls itself الروح وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. And hence they were asking about the Quran. So they were basically asking about the Quran. Are you the author? Who's the author? Where did you get the stories of the Quran from? Were you influenced by previous religions? Were you influenced by Christians and Jews or others? So they're asking about the essence of the Quran. But again, this theory is also lacks evidence, because the same way that the word ruh has been used as a connotation for the Quran, it's been used in other contexts as well. Some scholars say that يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ, they're asking about the human soul, my soul and your soul and the soul of every human being. They're asking about the reality of this human soul, what it means, where did it come from? Is it physical? Is it metaphysical? Can it be seen? Can it be felt? Can it be heard? So on and so forth. Al-Allama Tabatabai disagrees. He says, no, there's no proof that يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. Here, الروح means the human soul. There's no proof of that. Finally, Al-Allama Tabatabai in his Tafsir al-Mizan, he reaches the conclusion that they were asking a general question about al-ruh. Al-ruh that can be applied to the Quran and to Jibreel and to that angelic creation and to the human soul. The general concept of al-ruh, it was being asked about in this verse. To elaborate more on the theory of Al-Allama Tabatabai, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Al-Allama Tabatabai, first of all, as an introduction, Al-Allama Tabatabai, who's the author of Tafsir al-Mizan, which is one of the greatest explanations of the Holy Quran that we have up to date, written by a Shi'i theologian. Al-Allama Tabatabai died in the 80s, I believe in the year 80 or 82. He died 40 years ago. But his tafsir is a masterpiece. Its depth, it's the insight that he has on the verses of the Holy Quran. And his methodology is explaining the Quran through the Quran. He believed that the Quran explained itself. Of course, this doesn't mean that he didn't rely on the narrations of Ahlul Bayt. He didn't brush off the Ahlul Bayt. No, he would also look at the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, but he believed that the Quran explained itself. Because the Quran says, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, that we've revealed to you the Quran to explain everything. So everything includes itself. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an explanation to everything. Hence, the Quran explains itself. So what he does is, his methodology in his Tafsir al-Mizan, and by the way, it's 20 volumes, and it took him 20 years. Every year he would publish one volume of Tafsir al-Mizan. His methodology is, it's taking a verse and looking at similar verses to it and its context and trying to explain it in accordance with other verses of the Quran. Having said that, let's come back to يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul. What does the Quran say? What does Allah order Rasulullah to tell the people? يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Tell them that the ruh, the soul, is an entity from Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, is an entity from Allah. The Quran also speaks about Amrillah. You see, Allah says in another verse, in this verse, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. They ask you about the soul. Bear with me, it's a bit detailed. It's a bit tricky. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونَ. So in this verse, Allah is saying that ar-ruh is part of Amrullah. And then in another verse, He explains to us what Amrullah is. إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونَ. The amr is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings into being without introductions, without steps, without stages. Let me give you an example. We human beings, for me to be, I need stages. I needed parents. And my parents, they needed to conceive me. And my mother had to be pregnant with me for 9 months and then bring me into this life. And there I was. My existence came into being. There needed introductions. There needed steps and stages. This is one sort of being. Another sort of being requires no introductions, requires no stages. As soon as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells it to be, it is. إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ, His entity or His command, إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا, if He wanted something, أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell it be, and it will be. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell it to be, and it will be. So what does that tell us about the soul? It tells us that the soul is a type of entity, it's a type of creation that requires no introductions, it requires no stages. As soon as Allah tells it to be, it becomes. وَمَا أَمْرُنَا, and another verse, وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدَةٌ كَلَمْحٍ بِالْبَصَرِ. Allah says our entity or our command is nothing but an eyelash being closed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His amr, when He wants something, it's as if you're closing your eyelids that fast, that quickly it becomes. So to summarize, of course, Al-Allama Tabatabai, his approach, especially to this verse, is very, very complicated. And he explains it in over 20 pages, and I'm trying to summarize it in 3 minutes. In a very complicated sort of language, and of course his approach is also very philosophical as well. Allama Tabatabai was a master of philosophy. His approach was philosophical. But he reaches this conclusion. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَمْرِ قُلِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. That the ruh, that the soul is from an entity of God, from the command of God. And what is the command of God? The command of God, when He tells it to be, it is. So the soul is an entity. When Allah tells it to be, it is immediately, without introductions, without any steps. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bear with me, because this is it's a complicated topic. It's one of the most complicated topics, the human soul, or the soul in general. And to try to understand what the Quran is saying about the soul, it requires some patience. Another contemporary scholar, he says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ, they ask you about the soul. The soul is the source of all life. The soul is the source of all life. But the concept of life varies from position to position, from subject to subject. If we read the Quran and we see the word ruh being used in different contexts, there's a link. It's not that each usage is different or separate from the other usage. No, they're all linked together. How? Ruh is the source of all life. Now, lives are different. You have a material life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about material life when He says, وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِنَا. We blew in him from our soul. Allah gave Adam life. And ruh here is a connotation of material life. This is one. Two, a ruh could be a spiritual life. We could be talking about the source of a spiritual life. وَأَيَّدْنَاهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ. We supported him with that ruh. It gave him a spiritual life. It gave him a spiritual support and motivation. Or a ruh could be the source of legislative life. Legislative life. وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. And hence, we reveal to you ruhan, which is the Quran, min amrina. And the Quran is the source of legislative life. So the whole purpose of a ruh is it's the source of all life. But life could be material, could be spiritual, could be legislative. And then this contemporary scholar, he says, الروح is always associated with أمر. وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا. طيب. ألا له وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا. The word ruh is always associated with أمر. Keep with me. There's a point, believe me. We're getting there. الروح is always associated with أمر. And أمر, we have أمر and we have خلق. What's the difference between al-amr and al-khalq? And these are both Quranic concepts. Al-khalq is anything physical that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. All things that Allah has created, part of His creation that is physical, is called al-khalq in the Quran. Al-amr is anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, but it is metaphysical. And hence, له الأمر والخلق, as we read in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns له الأمر والخلق. He owns everything that is physical and everything that is metaphysical. And the soul is part of the metaphysical. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. الشيخ ناصر مكارم الشيرازي, he's the last theory that we'll discuss. الشيخ ناصر مكارم الشيرازي, he says, no. Put aside the amr and all of that. Here, the mushrikeen were asking about the human soul. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They were asking about the human soul. Because they have been intrigued by the human soul. Is it physical? Is it metaphysical? Can it be seen? Can it be not seen? You know, what's the difference between humans and animals? The difference between humans and animals is that humans have souls and animals don't have souls. Animals have ambitions. Where does your ambition stem from? From your soul, from the ruh. The desire, the yearning to search for the truth, to discover the secrets of the universe. The secrets of the universe. To discover, the desire to discover, where does that come from? It comes from the soul. The soul has a desire to learn, to discover the secrets of the universe, to discover secrets, to learn and to know. That all comes from the soul. The soul is very ambiguous, the human soul. It's ambiguous. Where did it come from? Where shall it go? What is it made of? This is all very ambiguous to all. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave them a very short answer. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Jewish scholars had told the mushrikeen, they told him, go and ask Rasulullah this question. Of course, they didn't believe that he was Rasulullah. They said, go and ask Muhammad. If he gives you a long answer on what the soul is, then he's not speaking the truth. Because all prophets before him, just like the hour, those of you who were with us when we talked about يوم القيامة يسألونك عن الساعة, right? They had told them, if he gives you a lot of details about the hour, he's not telling the truth. Because all prophets before him, they didn't give details about the hour. They didn't know when the date is. They don't know when the date is. The same about the soul. If he gives you a lot of details, he's not telling the truth. But if he doesn't give you any details, he's telling the truth. Rasulullah says, قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Here, there's a debate, my dear friends. There's a debate between scientists and religious scholars regarding the existence of the soul. Religious scholars, they say we have the human body and we have the human soul. We cannot see it, we cannot feel it, but it exists. It's not physical, it cannot be seen. At the time of death, you can't see a human soul apart from the human body, but it exists. It very much exists. In fact, our feelings, our emotions, when you love, what loves? Your body? No, your soul. When you hate someone, it's your soul that hates. Your passion, for something, it all stems from the soul. Your aspirations, even your iman, your faith, it stems in where? In the soul, not the human body. It's the soul. Ar-ruh, where you feel iman, you feel taqwa, you feel piety, you feel righteousness. These are all actions of the soul. They're not the actions of the body. The body doesn't love or hate. The body doesn't have ambitions. The body doesn't have aspirations. These all belong to the soul. Whereas scientists, if you ask them, they tell you there's no such thing as a soul. What are you talking about? This is not Disneyland or a Disney movie where there's a soul and a spirit. And there's only a human body. There's only a human anatomy. There's nothing beyond that. In ourselves, we have our bodily organs, your heart, your kidneys, your livers, and all that. There's no such thing as a soul. This is a hoax that religious scholars tell you. Human beings don't have souls. So you ask them, okay then, our feelings, our love, our hate, our passion, our, where does this all stem from? They'll tell you it's all in your head. It's all in the mind. When you love, it's because your mind tells you you love. When you hate, it's because your mind tells you that you hate. Your ambitions, your aspirations, and that's why they came up with psychology, right? The field of psychology to understand how the mind works. They say it's all in the mind. Other than the mind, there's no such thing as the soul. It's all the mind. The mind tells you to love, to hate, to be compassionate, to have passion, to have aspirations, to be ambitious. It's all in the mind. There's no such thing as the soul. But religious scholars, whether Muslim, Christian, Jewish, from the religious side, we say no, there is a soul. The human body has to have a soul in it. And we'll give you proof. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We human beings, our cells are regenerated, correct? We have cells that die and we have new cells all the time. At the age of 20, you have a physical human body. At the age of 80, is it the same exact body? It's not. Why? Because all of your cells have regenerated. Your old cells have died and you've produced new cells. The skin on your hands, you think that it's the same skin, but it's not the same skin. Correct? It's new cells in the body. And this applies to all of your bodily organs. That's why even your lungs, for smokers, those who smoke, if they quit smoking after 6 months, after a year, after 2 years, their body has regenerated new cells, right? So their lungs could go back to being good. And including what? Brain cells. Even brain cells, there are millions of cells that die, and there's billions of other cells that come in, replace them. So even our brains and our brain cells, they're renewed. At the age of 20 and at the age of 80, you practically have a completely different body. But there's one thing that remains the same. And what is that? It's the soul. The soul doesn't change. The cells of the souls don't change. It's the same soul. It's the same aspirations. I, Hossein, who was Hossein 20 years ago, I'm still Hossein today, with the same goals, with the same aspirations. And you too, with the same iman and faith and taqwa and piety that you had 20 years ago, it remained today. Or did that die out with the cells, with your brain cells, or with the cells of the rest of your organs? No, they didn't. And 20 years from now, you'll have the same piety, same faith, same iman. That tells you the human body changes, but there's one thing that remains constant, and that is the human soul. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلُ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. That's when they tell us that there's no soul. Look at a dead human body. When the body dies, khalas, that's it. There's nothing else. No, there is. Just because doctors can't see it with their own eyes, When a physician can't see a soul with their own eyes, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Otherwise, they'll tell us that God doesn't exist either. And they tell us that too. Because we can't see God, God doesn't exist. But it doesn't work that way. Just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. طيب, we believe that this human soul, and I'm concluding, I've taken too much of your time. This human soul existed before our physical existence on earth. The day that you were born, your soul existed before that. Your soul didn't come into life the day that you were born. We believe in alam al-dhar, a world before this life where our souls existed. Our souls were created before our physical bodies. And then when we came into this life, our souls came into our bodies the minute that we were born. Or the minute that we were conceived, actually. The minute that we were conceived, our souls come. Or wuluj al-ruh, after 4 months of being conceived. Scholars say wuluj al-ruh. That is when the soul comes to the body of a fetus, and it remains until the last moment in life. And then here, the soul departs the body. They depart. The body goes. It goes under the ground. It goes 6 feet under. It'll be decomposed. It withers away. But the soul remains. The soul was before this human life, and it remains after the human life. It was in alam al-dhar. And then it comes in alam al-dunya. And then it goes to alam al-barzakh. Barzakh is the in-between, between alam al-dunya and alam al-akhirah. The transitional period between this life and the next life, alam al-barzakh. It's the world of our souls. Our souls will meet and it will remain. And then finally, on the day of judgment, the soul comes back again to the body after a long separation. After such a long separation. You know, the reason why death can be difficult for some is because the soul develops an attachment to this physical body, our humanly bodies. It develops an attachment. Hence, it's difficult to leave the body at the time of death. But it will be summoned. And Allah yatawaffa al-anfus. Allah takes back. Yatawaffa comes from yastawfi. Allah takes back our souls. The same way that He put them in these human bodies, He will take them back. But on the day of judgment, they will meet again. They will meet again. Thus, the human soul exists. It's not a hoax. It's not a joke. It exists. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ قُلُ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. And then the verse says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And you have been given only some knowledge. This is only scatters of knowledge that we have about the soul. Otherwise, the world of ar-ruh, the world of the soul, remains ambiguous. It remains ambiguous to us all. And it will be a center of attention for years to come. Scholars, philosophers, they will continue to try to discover the reality of the human soul. Allah knows about it. But we human beings, we are limited in our knowledge. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to increase us in knowledge and to increase our knowledge to try to understand the secrets of our soul, to try to understand the secrets of this universe, to understand His creation and the secrets of His creation. The Quran says, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. This is a dua that we should say all the time. No matter how far we've reached in our studies, whether in academic studies and Western studies or in Hausa studies, always ask Allah to increase our knowledge. This dua is humbling. It reminds us of our ignorance. That no matter where we've reached in our studies, we'll remain to be ignorant. In fact, the more we know, the more we discover that we don't know. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم اخذل الكفار والكافرين اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم داوي كل جريح اللهم اكس كل عريان اللهم اشبع كل جائع اللهم اغني كل فقير اللهم اقضي دين كل مدين اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك وغير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك اللهم اني اسألك ان تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.